The first thing everyone noticed about the girl was the way she held her arms close to her body, as if she were always bracing against a cold that never quite went away. The second thing they noticed, if they dared to look longer, was the faint shine of healed skin that crept from her wrist up past her elbow, disappearing beneath the soft fabric of her sleeve. Burn scars, carefully treated, expensive in their healing, impossible to erase completely. The third thing they noticed, though far fewer ever admitted it, was how her father watched the world for her, as if daring it to look too closely. The CEO stood near the edge of the ballroom, a man whose name alone could silence a boardroom. He wore a tailored black suit that fit him like authority itself, shoulders straight, jaw set, eyes sharp with the habit of command. He had built an empire from nothing, clawing his way up through losses, betrayals, and a fire that had taken more than just part of his home. That fire had taken his wife. It had taken his daughter's unscarred skin. And in the years since, it had taken something else from him too, though he had never learned how to name it. This gala was supposed to be a celebration, a charity event, elegant and bright, with crystal chandeliers and string music floating through the air like a promise. It was meant to showcase generosity, power softened by philanthropy. But for him, it was only another obligation, another evening of shaking hands and nodding politely while his daughter stood beside him, silent and careful, her eyes following the floor more often than the faces around her. Across the room, near the service doors, Daniel adjusted the cuffs of his white shirt. It wasn't new. No part of his uniform ever was. He made sure it was clean, pressed, and presentable, because that was what professionalism meant to him. Being a waiter wasn't a stepping stone anymore. It was survival. It paid for rent, groceries, and school supplies. It paid for his son's inhaler and the occasional extra dessert, when he could manage it. Daniel was a single dad, a title he carried with equal parts pride and exhaustion. His wife had died 3 years earlier from an illness that gave them just enough time to say goodbye and never enough time to be ready. Since then, his world had narrowed to morning lunches packed in brown bags, late-night homework at the kitchen table, and the quiet fear of what would happen if he ever slipped and fell behind. He had taken extra shifts for this gala because the pay was better and the tips could be generous. He hadn't known who would be attending. He hadn't known that one song, played at the wrong moment, could change the direction of his life. Daniel moved through the crowd with practiced ease, balancing trays, offering drinks with a soft smile. He noticed people the way service workers always do. The nervous guest who clutched their glass too tightly. The wealthy donor who barely acknowledged him. The staff members exchanging glances. The staff members exchanging glances of shared fatigue. He didn't expect to notice the girl until he did. She stood near her father, dressed in a pale blue gown that covered her arms completely. The fabric shimmered under the lights, and for a moment Daniel thought she looked like someone standing underwater, separated from everyone else by an invisible wall. Her eyes were fixed on the dance floor where couples moved slowly to a gentle melody. There was longing there, not dramatic or desperate, just quiet and aching. Daniel felt something tug at his chest. It surprised him. He had learned to keep emotional distance at work. It made things easier, but something about the way she watched, the way her fingers curled slightly into the fabric of her dress, reminded him of his son, watching other kids play sports he couldn't yet join because of his asthma. The music changed, the band shifting into a softer tune, something nostalgic. A few more couples joined the floor. The CEO leaned down slightly to say something to his daughter. She shook her head, barely perceptible but firm. Daniel passed by again, refilling glasses nearby. He heard snippets of conversation, the polished laughter of donors, the careful admiration directed toward the CEO. He also saw the way the girl's shoulders tightened every time someone's gaze lingered too long on her arms, even though they were covered. He wasn't sure what made him stop. Maybe it was the memory of dancing in the kitchen with his wife while their son laughed and clapped. Maybe it was the knowledge that moments, unclaimed, had a way of disappearing forever. Or maybe it was simply the quiet courage in the girl's eyes that felt like it deserved to be met with something kinder than pity. When the song ended, Daniel took a breath and did something he had never done in all his years of service work. He stepped forward. "Excuse me," he said softly, directing his words to the girl, though he was acutely aware of the man beside her. "Would you like to dance?" The air seemed to freeze. Her eyes widened, flicking first to his face, then to her father. The CEO's expression hardened immediately, pride flaring like a shield. He opened his mouth to speak, to shut this down with the authority he wielded everywhere else. But his daughter spoke first. I don't dance," she said quietly. Daniel smiled, gentle and unassuming. "That's okay. I'm not very good either." A flicker of something crossed her face. Amusement, perhaps, or relief. Her father's voice cut in, low and controlled. "My daughter is fine where she is." Daniel met his gaze without challenge or fear. "Of course, sir. I only thought." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That sometimes it's nice to try something new, even if it's just for one song." The CEO scoffed softly. He had spent years protecting his daughter from stares, whispers, and cruelty. He had built walls around her life, convincing himself it was love. He didn't trust this stranger in a waiter's uniform, didn't trust the world enough to let it touch her again. But then his daughter surprised him. "It's okay, Dad," she said. Her voice trembled, but she lifted her chin. "I want to." The word once struck him harder than any argument could have. Reluctantly, he nodded. Daniel offered his hand. She hesitated only a moment before placing hers in his. Her grip was light, uncertain, as if she expected rejection at any second. He guided her onto the dance floor, keeping a respectful distance, his movements slow and careful. The band began another song, this one softer, almost fragile. Daniel didn't try to impress. He simply moved, steady and reassuring, letting the rhythm lead. He watched her closely, not her scars, not the way her sleeves hid them, but her face. At first, she was stiff, counting her steps, her body tense. Then, gradually, something shifted. Her shoulders relaxed. Her breathing evened out. She looked up at him, surprised, and he smiled again. "You're doing great," he said quietly. She let out a small laugh, the sound so unexpected it seemed to startle her. "I don't feel like I am." "That's usually when you are," he replied. Around them, conversations slowed. People began to notice, not because it was scandalous, but because it was different. A waiter dancing with the CEO's daughter. No grandeur, no spectacle, just two people moving together, unpolished and real. The CEO watched from the edge of the floor, his chest tight. He expected embarrassment, judgment, something that would confirm his fears. Instead, he saw his daughter smile. Not the polite smile she wore in public, but a real one, soft and unguarded, the kind he hadn't seen since before the fire. The song shifted again, and this time the melody carried a warmth that wrapped around the room. Daniel felt it too. He felt the weight of eyes on them, but didn't let it change the way he danced. He focused on her, on keeping her safe in the simplest way possible. Halfway through the song, she did something unexpected. She loosened her grip on his hand and gently pushed her sleeve back, just enough for the scars to catch the light. Daniel noticed, of course. He noticed everything, but he didn't react. He didn't flinch. He didn't look away. He didn't look too long. He simply kept dancing. Tears filled her eyes, and she blinked them away, laughing softly as if embarrassed by her own reaction. "Most people stare," she said. "Most people miss a lot," Daniel answered. The words were simple, but they landed like truth. Her father's pride, the armor he had worn for years, began to crack. He had believed he was strong for her, that shielding her from the world was the same as loving her well. But watching her now, he realized how small her world had become inside those walls. The song reached its final notes. Daniel slowed, bringing the dance to a natural close. He released her hand first, stepping back as he should have from the beginning. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was steadier. "Now." "Thank you," he replied, and meant it more than he could explain. She returned to her father's side, her steps lighter than before. The CEO placed a hand on her shoulder, uncertain, then gave it a gentle squeeze. "You looked happy," he said quietly. She nodded. "I was." Daniel returned to his duties, heart pounding. unsure if he had crossed a line that would cost him his job. But no one stopped him. No manager reprimanded him. Instead, something shifted in the room. Tips became more generous, smiles warmer. The music felt different. Near the end of the evening, the CEO approached him. Daniel straightened instinctively. "Sir, I don't know your name," the man said. "Daniel." The CEO studied him for a long moment. "You did something tonight that I couldn't." Daniel frowned slightly. "I just danced." "No," the CEO said. "You saw my daughter." Silence stretched between them. "She's stronger than you think," Daniel said carefully. The man nodded, his pride no longer sharp but aching. "So are you?" He reached into his pocket and handed Daniel a card. "If you ever need anything," he said. "Anything at all." Daniel accepted it, unsure what to say. Later that night, when Daniel tucked his son into bed and told him about the fancy party, he didn't mention the CEO or the card. He mentioned the song. And somewhere across the city, a girl stood in front of her mirror, sleeves rolled up, scars visible, smiling at her own reflection for the first time in years, while her father watched from the doorway, finally understanding that pride, when unbroken, can sometimes keep love from dancing.